The galaxy was supposed to be at peace. That's what the Dominion told themselves as their armada assembled over the star of Varus, blotting out its golden light with the sheer scale of their war machines. But peace in their language meant silence. Silence enforced by fire and chains dot across the void. A fleet 10,000 strong shifted into formation. Warships as long as cities gleamed black, their hulls bristling with weapons that could glass a world in minutes. Smaller escort. Frigates darted between them, predatory shadows guarding predators. And at the center, an enormous dreadnought, the Dominion's flagship, a vessel so vast it cast its own eclipse. Civilians on nearby colonies gazed up at the sky in horror as the fleet's shadows dimmed their suns. Children cried, not because they understood war, but because instinct told them this darkness was wrong. The Dominion had come to make an example. No single world could stand against them. The galaxy's laws, treaties, and fragile alliances had been carefully broken, twisted, and discarded until only one truth remained. The Armada was inevitable, and resistance was madness. "Deploy the warning channels," barked Admiral Vorath, his voice a graveled growl that rumbled through the command decks of the flagship. His skin, scaled and metallic like iron ore, caught the glow of the holomap as the Armada spread across half the system. "The colonies of Varus will yield, or they will burn." 1,000 officers repeated his order across encrypted channels, their voices weaving into a single chorus of domination. Screens lit up across civilian hubs, displaying the Dominion's ultimatum. Submit, or perish. The words echoed through crowded markets, through mining tunnels, through the bedrooms of families who had thought war would never touch them. Some fell to their knees in despair. Others clenched fists and wept silently, knowing no help was coming. No one challenged the Dominion. Not anymore. And yet, there was unease among the commanders. The Armada was strong, yes. Unstoppable, yes. But in the silence before the bombardment order, officers exchanged glances. Fear was not in their orders, but it had crept into their bones. Why? Because deep down even empires remembered. There were old stories, forgotten by most, dismissed by the young, laughed at in military academies. Stories of a species called human, a people who had once stood against impossible odds, who had burned, bright in the void and then disappeared, fading into obscurity. The Dominion had searched for them once, centuries ago. Their fleets reported ruined worlds, shattered colonies, silence where there should have been defiance. Earth, they said, was gone. Humanity was gone. But legends linger. And as the Armada prepared to fire, as Varus trembled beneath the shadow of annihilation, one Dominion officer muttered under his breath, so quiet no one was meant to hear. What if the stories were true? His words hung in the recycled air of the command deck, a whisper smothered by the Admiral's barked orders. Yet even those who laughed at the idea found their thoughts drifting toward the same unsettling question. If humans were gone, why did the galaxy still speak their name? The silence stretched. Weapons charged. Cities prayed. Then, without warning, the Dominion fleet's sensors flared with an unexpected signal. A single transponder pinged. Old, outdated. Human. Admiral Vorath frowned, his eyes narrowing as the alert repeated across every station. A lone ship, small and insignificant compared to the Armada, had entered the system. Its drive signature was unmistakable. Human. The bridge crew stared at their readings, waiting for the Admiral's laugh, his denial, his rage, but Vorath said nothing. Because in that instant, buried beneath his arrogance and cruelty, something primal stirred in his chest. Not fear of a ship. Not fear of a people. But fear of a memory. And every soldier, every civilian, every commander who heard the transponder echo felt the same whisper rising in the back of their mind. What if humanity wasn't gone? Silence swallowed the Armada. For a fleet of 10,000 warships, silence was rare. Normally the air crackled with orders, coordinates, targeting solutions, chatter from officers eager to display loyalty. But when the human signal appeared, That noise collapsed into stillness as though the void itself had leaned in to listen. "Confirm the source," Admiral Vorath barked, his voice cracking through the paralysis. "Confirmed, Admiral," replied a nervous officer. Her claws tapped frantically at the console, each keystroke betraying unease. "Signal is authentic. Transponder code matches ancient human registry protocols. It's real. Real. Dot." The word slid across the command deck like a knife. Vorath's eyes narrowed. His massive form shifted against the throne-like chair of command. "Project it. Show me." The holoscreen flared. Dot. And there it was. A lone ship. It drifted into her. The system at sublight, hull scarred and pitted from decades, perhaps centuries, of wear. Its plating bore faint human markings, faded almost to nothing, like echoes of a language the galaxy had tried to erase. The vessel wasn't sleek like Dominion craft. It wasn't menacing like their dreadnoughts. It looked tired, broken, out of place in the middle of a war fleet. And yet it came forward, unafraid. The Dominion bridge erupted in derisive laughter. "One ship?" a captain sneered. "One human rust bucket dares approach an armada? This must be some desperate colony." Trick, another spat. Perhaps scavengers found it, painted it up to play ghost stories. But their laughter was brittle, forced. Each voice carried an edge of denial, as if the more they mocked, the less real it would become. Vorath silenced them with a wave. His gaze stayed fixed on the hologram of the ship, studying it the way predators study rival predators. "Scan it," he commanded. The crew obeyed. Sensors probed, data streamed, but results came back blurred, distorted. Weapon systems unreadable. Reactor output anomalous. An engineer frowned. "Admiral, the readings don't make sense. Power levels are fluctuating. At times it appears inert, at others—" He hesitated, swallowing hard. "It spikes beyond our dreadnought class." A hush fell again. Impossible. A single ship could not rival the power of the Armada. And yet the data refused to obey their certainty. On the far side of the void, the human vessel rotated slowly, deliberately, as though announcing its presence. It wasn't fleeing, it wasn't hiding. It was waiting. A transmission request blinked across Dominion screens. The human ship wanted to speak. Vorath leaned forward. "Open the channel." The bridge air grew tight, recycled oxygen tasting, like metal. Officers shifted uncomfortably in their seats. For centuries, no living soul had heard a human voice beyond myth. The screen flickered. Static. Distorted audio. Then, clear as a blade being drawn, "This is Captain Elias Reeve of the Dauntless. You will leave this system." Gasps erupted across the command deck. The voice was steady, deep, and carried the weight of absolute conviction. Not a plea, not a negotiation, a command. Vorath's jaw tightened. "You dare—" "But the human," Captain continued, cutting him off with casual finality. "Turn your fleet. Withdraw. If you remain, you will not leave intact." The Dominion officers broke into a chorus of disbelief. Laughter, curses, rage-filled outbursts. The idea was absurd. One ship threatening thousands. Madness. Yet no one turned off the transmission. No one dared. Vorath rose from his throne, towering above the crew. His scales glinted under the harsh command lighting. "This is Dominion space, human. Your kind is dust. Your world, ashes. You have no authority here." The captain's eyes, weathered but sharp, bored into him through the screen. "Authority? No. Resolve." His voice dropped to a chilling calm. "And you're about to relearn why humanity was never forgotten." The transmission cut. The Dauntless powered forward. Its engines flared brighter than they had any right to. Light spilling across the void in colors Dominion sensors couldn't classify. Shields shimmered into place. Fields woven so tightly they bent incoming scans back on themselves. A single ship, standing against an empire. Some Dominion officers felt the hair along their spines rise. Because though they had mocked, though they had laughed, though they had cursed. Deep in their bones, they remembered the old stories. The ones that began with a whisper. And ended with annihilation. Admiral Vorath snarled, rage masking the unease gnawing at him. Ready the fleet. If humanity wishes to remind us of their defiance, then let them be buried beneath our fire. His command rippled through the armada. Weapons charged. Engines shifted into combat formation. 10,000 warships prepared to crush a lone intruder. But in the pit of their stomachs, commanders and soldiers alike couldn't shake a single unspoken thought. What if one ship was enough? For the first time in centuries, a human voice echoed across Dominion comms. The sound unsettled them. It wasn't desperate. It wasn't broken. It wasn't the plea of some forgotten species crawling out of extinction. No. This voice carried weight. Calm, steady, sharp as if it could carve through the void itself. This is Captain Elias Reeve of the Dauntless. Withdraw now, or face what my ship carries. The words rippled through the armada like an unseen current. Thousands of officers heard them, from the bridge crews of sleek frigates to the command towers of kilometer-long dreadnoughts. Some laughed, others clenched their jaws, but all felt the same cold unease crawl down their spines. On the flagships, command deck, Admiral Vorath's lips peeled back into something between a snarl and a grin. Open channel, he ordered. The crew obeyed, and once again the human appeared on their main display. Captain Elias Reeve looked nothing like the image history had painted of humans. He was older, his face weathered and lined, hair streaked with gray. His uniform, black and simple, bore no shining medals, no ornate markings of rank, only the insignia of his ship. His eyes, however, were alive with something dangerous. Conviction. Vorath leaned forward, letting the projection magnify his towering scaled form. Human. Do you know where you stand? You face the Dominion Armada, 10,000 strong. You face power that has broken empires, crushed rebellions, reduced civilizations to memory. And you bring... what? A relic? A ghost of a ship? Reeve didn't blink. I bring enough. The word struck harder than any weapon. Simple. Certain. Without hesitation. The bridge crew waited for their admiral to laugh, to roar his contempt. Instead, Vorath felt a prickling under his scales. He knew posturing when he heard it. He had silenced countless rebels who blustered and begged. But this was no bluff. This was something else. Reeve's image leaned closer. Turn your fleet. Go home. This is your first and last chance. The Dominion officers burst into uproar. Insanity, one shouted. Arrogance, cried another. Destroy him now. But Vorath raised a clawed hand, silencing them. His eyes narrowed, his instincts warring with his pride. And if we refuse, human? What then? What can one ship do? For a moment, Reeve said nothing. The silence stretched, heavy, suffocating. Then slowly he spoke. You'll find out. The channel cut. The Dominion bridge erupted in angry voices, but beneath the noise, something lingered, a shadow of dread. The crew couldn't stop replaying the way the human had spoken, as though victory wasn't in doubt, as though history itself stood behind him. Vorath clenched his fists, talons digging into his palms. He turned toward his war council. Send word. First line. Advance. Out in the void, thousands of warships shifted, their thrusters igniting. In a synchronized blaze of fire, the formation closed in around the Dauntless, boxing it in with walls of steel and plasma. The human ship didn't move. It drifted, waiting. Its reactor glow pulsed faintly, steady as a heartbeat. Dominion gunners prepared firing solutions. Targeting grids danced across screens. 10,000 weapons locked onto a single point. And still, the Dauntless waited. Inside the ship, Captain Reeve stood on his bridge, hands clasped behind his back, his crew silent at their stations. He didn't bark orders. He didn't posture. He simply watched as the Armada encircled them like predators circling prey. Sir, his first officer whispered, unable to hide the tremor in her voice, they outnumber us 10,000 to 1. Reeves' eyes never left the void. Then they've brought enough ships to make it fair. The crew stiffened. Fear trembled through them, but so did something else. Resolve back on the Dominion. Flagship Admiral Vorath bared his teeth. He dares mock us. Enough of this. Signal the fleet. Prepare to fire. Yes, Admiral. Across the Armada, engines hummed, weapons charged, reactors swelled with lethal power. The void blazed with the light of impending destruction. But before the order came, before the first shot was fired, every officer, every soldier, every civilian watching the feed heard the humans' last words echo again in their minds. I bring. Enough. And the question no one wanted to speak formed anyway. What if he was right? The void trembled. 10,000 Dominion warships loomed in perfect formation, weapons primed, reactors burning with the heat of suns. At their center, the Dauntless waited. Small, scarred, outnumbered beyond reason. Admiral Vorath raised his clawed hand. Fire. The order cascaded through the Armada. Plasma lances ignited. Beam cannons spat rivers of molten light. Missile storms streaked toward the human ship like 1,000 burning comets. The void lit brighter than a sunrise. Every weapon designed to erase civilizations converging on a single target. The Dominion bridge roared with triumph before the fire had even landed. No ship, no matter its trickery, could survive this. But when the storm cleared, the Dauntless was still there, untouched. A ripple of disbelief swept the Armada. Sensors scrambled for explanation. Shields, cloaking, some unknown countermeasure. Nothing matched. Their weapons had simply failed. And then, the Dauntless fired. One beam. Thin. Focused, unimpressive by Dominion standards. But the effect was catastrophic. A dreadnought, 3 kilometers of armored steel, command hub of an entire battle group, shuddered. For an instant, it seemed intact. Then its hull split cleanly in half, molten seams glowing like torn flesh. The two halves drifted apart, spilling wreckage and fire into the void, before erupting in a silent, shattering explosion. The shockwave rippled across, nearby ships rocking them like toys in a tide. The Armada froze. On the Dominion flagship, silence gripped the command deck. Officers stared in horror at their screens, struggling to comprehend what they had just witnessed. One ship, one shot, one impossibility made real. What weapon is that? An officer stammered. Vorath's claws scraped across the armrest of his throne, carving deep gouges in the metal. His eyes burned with disbelief and fury. Impossible, he hissed. Nothing can do that. Nothing. But another officer whispered, voice trembling. The legends. They said humanity. Silence, Vorath roared. But the damage was done. The word legends echoed in every mind. Legends of humanity wielding forbidden power. Legends of weapons too final, too absolute. Outlawed by the ancient councils. Legends thought dead. And here, before them, one ship was making those legends real. The Dauntless rotated slowly, its beam cannon glowing faintly as it recharged. Its voice returned, on all channels calm and merciless. You have one chance left. Leave now, or the next shot won't stop at one ship. The bridge crew erupted in chaos. Captains shouted across comms. Some demanded immediate retreat. Others, enraged, called for overwhelming retaliation. Fear warred with pride. Chaos with arrogance. Vorath slammed his fist onto the command table, shattering the reinforced alloy. His eyes locked on the human captain's image, which flickered across the holoscreens like judgment incarnate. No. This is a trick. One ship cannot destroy us, it cannot. But even as he spoke, another Dominion warship, the Vraxen Spear, moved too close to the human vessel, daring a strike. The Dauntless fired again. This time, the beam lanced through 2 ships at once, piercing them like paper. Both vessels detonated in incandescent blossoms of flame, debris scattering into the Armada's carefully organized lines. The silence that followed wasn't disbelief anymore. It was terror. Admiral, one of his lieutenants whispered, voice breaking. We should consider— Vorath's head snapped toward him, eyes blazing. We are the Dominion. We do not retreat before relics. Overwhelm it. Crush it beneath the weight of 10,000 guns. His words rang out like iron, but his crew heard what he didn't say. Fear. For the first time, their admiral sounded unsure. Outside comma, the armada shifted uneasily. Warships hesitated, formations wavered. The Dauntless glowed brighter, as though feeding on their uncertainty. And across the galaxy, on every world where civilians intercepted the broadcast, hope stirred. For the first time in generations, oppressed peoples whispered a single thought. Maybe the legends were true. The Dominion had brought their entire fleet to break a sector. But one human ship had just broken them instead. The Dominion Armada was no longer laughing. 3 warships, destroyed, not crippled, not damaged, but utterly erased with single shots. The wreckage still drifted across the void, molten fragments scattering like sparks from a blacksmith's forge. Each glowing shard was a silent reminder. The human ship was not bluffing. On the flagship, Admiral Vorath's chest heaved with rage. But behind his fury was something he refused to name: fear. Report, he barked. Admiral, the sensor officer's voice quavered. The readings are unstable. We can't classify the energy output. The reactor signatures spike and collapse, almost like— She hesitated, throat tightening. Like it's alive. Alive. The word hung in the recycled air, cold and unsettling. Another officer whispered. This can't be human tech. They were primitive, barely reaching the stars before they vanished. Unless— The thought trailed off, but others picked it up. Unless the stories were true. Unless the humans had found them. Legends. Whispers. Forbidden knowledge. There was talk in the dark corners of academies, murmured warnings shared between old generals, tales of the relic war drives, weapons built in the galaxy's first age of expansion. They hadn't just destroyed fleets. They had erased entire civilizations. Worlds rendered into dust, stars left hollow and silent. The Council of Ancients had banned them, ordered every fragment buried or destroyed. But what if humanity had disobeyed? On comm channels between ships, Dominion officers spoke in hushed, frantic tones. It's impossible. No one survived the purge. And yet look with your own eyes. If the humans found one, then we are facing extinction. Meanwhile, the Dauntless drifted forward, silent but menacing. Its hull glowed faintly now, as though the ship itself was waking from a long slumber. Energy coiled along its seams, weaving patterns Dominion sensors could not decipher. The ship was scarred, ancient, weathered, but in that moment, it looked less like a vessel and more like a relic of judgment. Captain Elias Reeve stood at his command station, his expression calm, almost detached. Around him, his crew worked in tense silence. Every Dominion broadcast was being intercepted, every panic-filled whisper bouncing back to them. Reeve heard the fear. He welcomed it. Captain, his first officer said softly, eyes wide as she studied the tactical readouts. They think we're carrying a relic drive. Reeve's lips curved into the faintest of smiles. Let them. The Armada shifted uneasily. Thousands of ships held position, weapons armed but unmoving. The Predator had become prey, and they knew it. On the Dominion flagship, Vorath slammed his fist into the command console. Enough of this superstition. They wield no relic, only tricks and fear. Humanity was nothing, and humanity remains nothing. But his words felt hollow even to him. He remembered the stories. As a cadet, he had been told about Earth's final war, about how human fleets fought long after they should have surrendered, about how they wielded weapons no one else dared touch. And now, one ship was proving every warning true. A lieutenant swallowed hard and spoke up, breaking ranks. Admiral, permission to speak freely. Vorath glared. Speak. The lieutenant's voice shook, but he forced the words out. If this ship is carrying a relic drive, then 10,000 ships will not be enough. We should retreat before Vorath's Claws lashed out, striking the young officer to the deck in a spray of sparks and blood. "Cowardice!" he roared. "We are Dominion. We do not bend to myth." But as the officer lay motionless, the others exchanged silent, haunted glances. They didn't need to say it aloud. They all felt it. The myths were real. The Dauntless pulsed with another surge of impossible energy. Its glow intensified like a star being born in the void. And across the galaxy, on distant colonies, pirate havens, smuggler stations, and forgotten worlds, the broadcast spread. Civilians, rebels, slaves, and free folk alike stared in wonder. For generations they had whispered of humanity as legend. Now they watched, wide-eyed as legend stepped out of myth and into reality. A single human ship, holding the galaxy's greatest power. The Armada had come to remind the galaxy who ruled. Instead, it had reminded the galaxy who they had forgotten. The Dominion Armada had never known fear. 10,000 warships bound by a single will had crushed every rebellion, silenced every defiance, and turned countless worlds into ash. They were the storm that could not be stopped, the hammer of inevitability. Until now. One ship. One human ship had shattered that certainty. On the Dominion flagship, Admiral Vorath's claws dug grooves into the command throne as his eyes burned with a fury that barely concealed his dread. Around him, the bridge crew waited, trembling, unwilling to speak the truth hanging in the air. The Armada was hesitating before one vessel. Vorath roared, his voice shaking the deck. "Enough! I will not see my fleet undone by fear and myth. Order the Armada, all ships engage. Crush them beneath our fire." The command rippled through the void like thunder. Engines flared, formations locked, tens of thousands of weapons hummed with lethal power. The Armada surged forward in unison, a tidal wave of steel and fire bearing down on the lone human cruiser. On the Dauntless, Captain Elias Reeves stood at the center of his bridge, calm as a man waiting for the tide. His crew moved with precision, their fear sharpened into focus. "Captain," his first officer said, voice low, "they're coming with everything they have." Reeves' eyes stayed fixed on the viewport, on the ocean of war descending upon them. "Good," he murmured. "Then there will be no doubt when they fall." The first barrage hit. A storm of plasma and missiles lit the void, so bright it turned the darkness into day. Shock waves rippled across the sector as thousands of weapons converged. And yet, when the light cleared, the Dauntless still stood. Its shields shimmered with impossible strength, bending reality itself around the ship. Dominion weapons that should have torn moons apart fizzled into nothing against its defenses. Then the human ship answered. A single pulse. The beam erupted, slicing through space like a scythe. It tore across the Dominion's formation, vaporizing 100 ships in one sweep. Dreadnoughts that had ruled systems vanished in white-hot explosions. Frigates crumbled into glowing dust. The Armada staggered, its perfect formation broken. Another shot. Another wave of destruction. Hundreds more gone. The void filled with wreckage, drifting husks, and fields of fire. Panic spread across the Dominion ranks. Crews screamed over open comms. "We can't stop it. They're cutting through us like nothing. Fall back. For the love of the stars, fall back." On the flagship, Vorath slammed his claws into the console. "Hold. Your lines! Overwhelm them!" But no one listened. Fear had infected the Armada like a plague. Ships broke formation, captains turning their vessels away, fleeing into the dark. Order crumbled into chaos. From the Dauntless, Captain Reeve watched it unfold. His crew sat in stunned silence, the scale of what they were witnessing almost too great to comprehend. "Sir," the comms officer whispered. The comms officer. "They're retreating. The Armada is collapsing." Reeves' expression didn't change. His voice was steady, unyielding. "Let them run, but they will carry this memory with them, and so will the galaxy." The Dominion fleet scattered. Thousands of ships fled in every direction, abandoning discipline, abandoning pride. Wreckage floated where once there had been perfect unity. The Armada, unbreakable, unstoppable, was broken. On worlds watching the broadcast, the reaction was instant. Crowded markets erupted in cheers, families wept in disbelief, old rebels clasped hands murmuring, "Humanity has returned." The legend had become real. On the Dominion flagship, Admiral Vorath stood frozen, his pride shattered, his empire humiliated. Around him, officers whispered what none dared say aloud. The Armada had been shattered by a single human ship. And deep within the void, the Dauntless turned slowly, its reactor glow bathing the wreckage in pale light. It looked less like a warship, now and more like a judge passing sentence. The galaxy would never forget this day. The Dominion Armada, once the terror of 1,000 worlds, was gone. What remained was wreckage. The void above, Varys was littered with burning hulks and drifting debris. Shattered hulls spun silently, glowing red from molten seams. Thousands of escape pods blinked faintly in the darkness, tiny fireflies against the graveyard of war machines. At the center of it all, the Dauntless drifted calmly, its hull glowing like a beacon amid the ruin. On its bridge, Captain Elias Reeve stood motionless. His crew watched him with reverent silence. They had witnessed the impossible, the fall of an armada. But they knew this moment was not victory. It was something larger. Reeve nodded once. "Open all channels." The comm officer hesitated. "All channels, sir? You mean?" "All of them," Reeve repeated, his voice steady as stone. "Military. Civilian, pirate, smuggler, neutral. If they have a receiver, they will hear me." The officer swallowed hard, then obeyed. Across the sector, across neighboring systems, across half the galaxy, a single broadcast cut through every signal. Static cleared. Then a human face appeared. Captain Reeve, scarred, weathered, his uniform plain, his expression unshaken. Behind him, the faint glow of the Dauntless's reactor pulsed like a living heart. "This is Captain Elias Reeve of the human ship Dauntless," his voice rang out, clear and sharp, echoing into countless home stations and war rooms. "You have witnessed the fall of the Dominion Armada." Gasps erupted wherever the signal was seen. On colonies once cowed by the Dominion, crowds surged into streets. In slums and marketplaces, merchants froze, watching hollow screens with trembling hands. On rebel hideouts, fighters leaned forward, their eyes wide with hope they had thought long dead. Reeve continued, his voice unwavering. "We warned them. We asked for peace. They brought war." His eyes hardened. "This is the consequence." Behind him, the wreckage of the Armada spun slowly, a silent monument to the price of arrogance. Reeve's gaze seemed to pierce every listener, as if he were speaking directly to them. "Let this stand as a message to all who would forget," he said. "Earth is not gone. Humanity is not broken. We are here." In a Dominion palace half a galaxy away, overlords stared in stunned silence. Advisors whispered, voices frantic, "If this spreads, every subject world will rise. Their fear of us will shatter." And still the human spoke. "You call yourselves rulers, conquerors, tyrants." His tone dropped, low and cold. "But you will remember this day as the day a single human ship shattered your greatest fleet." The words carried on silence, heavier than any threat. On the Dauntless's bridge, the crew watched the broadcast in awe. They knew this was more than a warning. It was a proclamation. The captain wasn't speaking for himself. He was speaking for every forgotten world, every broken colony, every people who had suffered beneath the Dominion's shadow. Across the galaxy, voices rose in response. Some shouted, some wept, some simply whispered one word. "Human." On rebel strongholds, cheers erupted. Weapons were raised in salute. Songs of defiance, long buried, were sung again. In Dominion-controlled systems, whispers spread like wildfire. Slaves, servants, conscripts, they all repeated the same phrase. "The humans have returned." And in every Dominion War Council, unease turned into dread. If one ship could do this, What if there were more? Captain Reeves' final words sealed it. We seek no war. But if you bring it to us, if you bring it to those we stand to protect, know this. The next time, we will not stop at one armada. The broadcast cut. For a long moment, the galaxy was silent. Then it roared. The wreckage of the Dominion Armada still smoldered above Varus. For days, emergency beacons flashed in the void. Escape pods drifted aimlessly, broadcasting weak signals for rescue. Burning debris rained into the upper atmosphere, streaking the skies with fire. Survivors whispered in disbelief, their pride shattered along with their fleet. And at the center of the graveyard of ships stood the dauntless. Scarred, weathered, but unbroken. On worlds across the galaxy, the broadcast of Captain Elias Reeve still replayed. Markets buzzed with hushed conversations. Taverns rang with songs of rebellion. Children clutched makeshift toys painted with the faded insignia of humanity. For the first time in generations, people dared to hope. But on the Dominion's throne worlds, silence reigned. The overlords raged in private, but they did not speak aloud what they all knew. The myth of human weakness was dead. Fear had replaced it. On the bridge of the Dauntless, Reeve watched the chaos unfold on his screens. His officers waited for orders, their faces a mixture of awe and exhaustion. They had survived the impossible, but they knew this was not an ending. It was only the beginning. Captain, his first officer said quietly, the galaxy will rally to us now. The oppressed, the broken, they'll look to us for leadership, for guidance. Reeves' gaze lingered on the drifting wrecks of the Armada. Then we've already succeeded, he said softly. Hope is the weapon they never accounted for. He stood straighter, voice steady as iron. But the Dauntless is not here to lead empires. We are not conquerors. We are a reminder. And reminders don't linger, they vanish so their shadow grows larger than life. His crew exchanged uneasy looks, but none argued. Moments later, the Dauntless's engines flared. Slowly the ship turned from the wreckage and pointed into the black, toward uncharted space. Plot course, Reeve ordered. Deep void, no signal trails. When they look for us, let them find only silence. The helm officer hesitated. Sir, after what we've done, after what they've seen, won't they chase us? Reeves' lips curved into the faintest of smiles. Let them. The more they chase, the more they fear. The Dauntless surged forward, its reactor glowing with impossible energy. As it slipped into the darkness, it did not leave behind coordinates, allies, or promises. Only wreckage, only silence. And only legend. Across the galaxy, the stories spread faster than any fleet. On rebel worlds, leaders invoked the name Dauntless as proof that no empire was eternal. In Dominion academies, cadets whispered the tale in secret, their instructors too afraid to acknowledge it. Among smugglers and outlaws, it became a story to trade over drinks. A single human ship, scarred but unyielding, that had shattered 10,000 warships. And in quiet corners of the galaxy, far from power and politics, parents told their children bedtime stories of the day humanity returned. Some told it as truth, others as myth. But all agreed on one thing. The Dominion would never sleep easily again. Because legends do not die. They wait. On the Dominion flagship's ruins, Admiral Vorath survived, dragged from wreckage by loyal officers. His body was scarred, his pride broken. Yet even in his shame, one thought gnawed at him, burning hotter than his wounds. The human had spared him. Reeve had destroyed ships without hesitation. But Vorath, the commander, still lived. Why? The answer came to him in the silence of his shattered command. Reeve hadn't spared him. He had condemned him to live with the memory of defeat, to become the living messenger of humanity's warning. And in that moment, Vorath realized something far worse than death. He was not just beaten, he was forgotten history, while the humans had become myth once more. Deep in the void, the Dauntless vanished into darkness. Its engines dimmed, its signal faded, and the ship slipped beyond the reach of even the Dominion's vast intelligence. Networks. Some said it still wandered, waiting for the next empire foolish enough to forget. Others said it had returned to Earth to rejoin a hidden human fleet. And some swore it was never real at all, that it was a phantom conjured by fear itself. But the truth didn't matter. The galaxy would remember.